This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. KCM Wealth Management. The snow is snowing, the wind is blowing. All right, enough of that. Why is it that in this festive season, so many people are suffering and find happiness so difficult to embrace? Well, it's not that mysterious, but it's worth looking at because a lot of those people are us and are around us at all times. Candace Plattor is a clinical counselor, and she's the author of a book that's won numerous awards called Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself, the Top 10 Survival Tips for Loving Someone with an Addiction. And Candace, we're delighted to have you here. I know this is a time of the year that your business goes up.
Yes, I've been very busy.
Yeah, why? What happens to people?
Well, you know, this is a very difficult time for people who are either addicted or who are the loved ones of people who are addicted.
Yes.
It's really hard in our society today to find anybody that isn't really affected somehow by addiction.
Yeah, yes, it's
You
true.
know,
Every family, everybody has something going on.
It seems that, you know,
Yes,
because if you
yeah.
think about it, every addict, for
Yeah.
every one, when I say addiction, when I say an addict, I'm talking about alcohol and drugs, of course, but I'm also talking about things like eating disorders and gambling and smoking and internet addiction and sex addiction and relationship addiction.
Tanya
and,
text.
Yeah, text, the snow is snowing.
Yeah.
That, you know, being in love with your smartphone.
Yeah.
And especially,
What's your boyfriend's name? Android.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And, you know, especially at this time of year, overspending is a big one as well.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
So, but for every one person who's addicted to whatever they're addicted to, there are usually a mother, a father, a sister, a brother,
A spouse.
and a spouse, an aunt, an uncle, children, grandparents,
Yes.
friends, colleagues, bosses, teachers, even therapists who
Yes.
are affected by that in some way. So, you know, it's really rampant.
So why, especially at what should be a joyous time of year for so many people, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or 12 other religions, you know, a lot of festivities happen in the winter solstice. So why do so many people get so unhinged?
I think there's a lot of stress that goes on at this time of year, and I think the media hypes that. So there's all these things to do, and there's all this shopping to do, and there's all this excitement, and there's all these advertisements on TV about how wonderful it is to be part of a family. And for many people, that's not how it is. It is for some people, and I'm really happy for them. But for other people, it isn't like that. So for somebody who's addicted, they're having trouble worrying about whether they're going to be able to stay clean, sober, whether they're going to be able to make it through the holidays. And for the people who are loved ones of those people who are addicted, they're struggling and suffering right along with them.
Is it fair to say that at a time when family and loving relationships seem to be at a premium, you know, at Christmas, doesn't that bring up for so many people a sense of loss? Well, I don't have that. I don't feel that.
Yes, it does for many, many people.
Yeah.
And again, especially, I work predominantly now with the loved ones of people with addiction. I spent years and years working with the addicts themselves and sometimes still do.
Yes.
But now I work primarily with the loved ones because there's very little out there for them. There's Al-Anon, which is fantastic.
Yes.
There are some treatment centers that have family programs.
Yes.
And there are some therapists who do work with loved ones, but not that many.
By the way, I was very interested to read in your literature that you made an interesting shift. You have great respect and love for 12-step programs, but you're also quite enamored with another version, a kind of a turn on 12-step programs, which is a 16-step program. Yes. And it's very similar, but it's just significantly a little different.
Yes, and you know, some people have heard about the 16 steps. They were written by Charlotte Castle, who was a member of 12-step programs, who found it just a little bit too limiting for her.
Okay.
So she decided to go against the dogma of the 12-step programs where you never change anything.
Yes.
You speak it the way it's written and the way it was started in 1935. So she changed that. And so what's important to understand is that the 16 steps isn't the 12 steps and 4 more steps. They're very different. I find them a lot more spiritual because a lot of people have trouble with the God thing, as they call it. And it's more inclusive of people. It's the same milkshake, but it's a different flavor.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So the 12 steps don't work for everyone. The 16 steps might not work for everyone, and we need to have alternatives for people, because the 12 steps don't work for everyone. We know that now.
And why do we need alternatives for people? Because as they say with addictions, alcoholism is a cunning, baffling, and powerful disease.
Yes.
Because people will use every manner of invention to trick themselves into not getting better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the more options available, the better chance of helping someone.
Of helping someone get ready to be better. I mean, because until we're ready to be better and live a different kind of life and not hide anymore from reality, from how we feel about ourselves and our lives, that's when we start to recover.
Well, why did you start to make the shift? It's interesting for you in your own practice. Why did you start to make the shift from the primary candidate, those who are suffering from addictions, to the people around them?
Well, it's an interesting story, actually. I worked for 16 years in the downtown east side at a wonderful organization called Watari, which is an outpatient alcohol and drug counseling service right on East Hastings.
Right.
So I was the first counselor they hired, and I was there for a really long time.
Yes.
Toward the end of my time there, I started getting phone calls from the loved ones. I didn't seek this out. They started calling me. I guess I was supposed to do this work because they started calling me. And at first, I didn't really know what to do with them. I had no training in how to work with the loved ones. But as they talked to me, as I had more and more people coming, they kept telling me the same kind of story with the same dynamics.
Which is?
Mostly that they were enabling, not really helping, which is maybe something we can talk about.
Absolutely.
They were at their wits' end. They didn't know what to do with their loved ones, and also that they really deeply, dearly loved these people, but they didn't know what to do. It was crazy for them. And so as I heard more and more, I started to develop some strategies and some skill in working with them, and found that there was so little out there for them. That's why I decided to write the book, because I can't work with everybody that needs this. Yeah.
Tell me, Candace, why I am sensing in recent years that the loved ones of addicts are as defensive and walled as the addicts themselves. You know, I've had quite a few phone calls in the last year from people saying, you know, my daughter's an addict or something. And then we talk for a while, and I find myself saying, look, I'm just an individual. Your daughter needs a whole program. There's not a lot I can do with your daughter unless she starts into something.
Unless she's ready.
But you, I want to talk to.
Exactly. That's what I say, too.
Yeah. And then I find the parents really kind of shaken up. You mean I have an issue?
Oh, I find that a lot. And I think there are a few reasons for it. I think the first reason is that there's so much shame that they feel, and loved ones, it's just been in recent years, maybe even months, that loved ones have really started to talk about what's going on for them. I think Al-Anon is seeing an increase in people coming, and I'm certainly finding an increase in people calling.
Yeah.
Because when we don't talk about something, we don't realize that other people are struggling with the same exact thing. And so we feel really shameful about the fact that we're the only ones, when that's not really true. You know, so I think that's a big piece.
Well, look at the famous local story where the husband and wife team who had a son suffering from addiction could get no answers anywhere, and just put a little notice up in their church in Kerrisdale some years ago, and invited people who might be experiencing something similar.
Yep.
300 people showed up.
Is that the From Grief to Action?
Yes.
That's how they started,
That's
which
how
is
they started.
a great program too,
Yes.
From Grief to Action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think also, you know, loved ones are often people pleasers. They don't like conflict. They like to make everything okay for everybody else, and in order to do that, they put their own needs on the back burner a lot for long periods of time.
I did everything I could.
Well, there's that too, yeah. And they don't, when somebody points out that they have a problem, it's like, what do you mean I have a problem? I don't have any needs. I don't have any, it's all about the addict.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
So what, they become addicted to the addict's addiction. That's how I put it. They become addicted to the addict's addiction. And what I mean by that is that if the addict is doing well, they're doing well. And if the addict isn't doing so well, they're not doing so well.
I remember saying to one mother, the biggest thing that you can do for your daughter right now is create your own stability.
Absolutely.
Your daughter urgently needs you to be clear, and right now you're all over the map.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, you have to come off that roller coaster. You have to take a look at yourself. You have to live your own life, take good care of yourself. There are many aspects of this which are in the book. Those are the tips of things for people to do if they're in that situation.
And that doesn't mean that you're suddenly ignoring or cutting off your loved one.
No, you're not cutting off your loved one unless there are some really difficult things going on and you feel like you want to do that. And so for some people that's a boundary, and for other people it's not a boundary. But no, it's not about cutting off the addict. It's about getting your own life in shape. Because probably for a long time, if you've been a loved one of somebody with an addiction of any kind, your
life is turmoil.
Your life, you know, hardly even exists for you except for that addiction. And that's a problem. It's not, that's not good for the loved one, and that's not good for the addict. So it's a lose-lose. Yeah.
You work with people just sitting in an office?
I work
an hour
with people.
At a time?
I basically work with people sitting in an office for an hour at a time. And it's really interesting because the loved ones have had so few opportunities to talk about what's going on for them with somebody who will really listen that an hour just zips by. They say, what do you mean the session's over?
Right off the top of your head, how many sessions does it take before you, as the counselor, start to see, I think this person's starting to get this? 3?
It depends on the person. Usually in the first session, there's a light bulb moment.
A little moment.
Yep, there's a light bulb moment where I'll say something, and I love it when they come back the next time and they say, remember when you said, and I don't remember what I said, but they remember. So something landed for them, something touched them, and I love when that happens, even if I don't remember what it is.
That's great. Our guest is Candace Plattor. She's a clinical counselor and the author of this book, Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. The subtitle of the book is The Top 10 Survival Tips for Loving Someone with Addictions. We're talking about people who just find the Christmas season so stressful and painful. When we come back, we may not go through the top 10, but I know what her 3 favorites are. In the meantime, our favorite website is davidberner.com. We invite you to visit and send emails and so on. And here are some of our favorite people who are so kind in helping us bring this program to you week after week here on Shaw Community Television, Cable 4. Back in a moment. This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. KCM Wealth Management. the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. Back, our guest is Candace Plattor. She is a clinical counselor working largely with people with addictions, and even more with the people around people with addictions, their families and friends and so on, who are struggling as much as the addict, sometimes more. Candace, let's talk about your book. Has won all kinds of wonderful international awards, which is great. Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself. And the subtitle is the top 10 survival tips, but I know you have 3 favorites. Let's start with the first one. You can't really fix another person.
So stop trying.
Yeah, but that's what we do.
Yes.
If we have a child or a spouse or somebody, we're always trying to make them better.
Yeah. Or different.
Yeah. Oh, or different.
Or different.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I think we're taught this from a very early age that
Yes.
that we actually can control another person, but we
How
actually.
are we taught that?
Well, let's say you've got a 5-year-old child, and you say to that child, "Go clean your room."
Yes.
And the child says, "I don't want to clean my room. I'm not going to clean my room." And you say, "Well, if you don't clean your room, you don't watch TV tonight."
Right.
And the child goes and cleans his room.
Right.
So the parent might think, I've got it over him,
Yes,
I
yes,
control
yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But really what happened is the child made a choice.
Right.
And the child could have made a different choice.
Yes.
So we really, it is a planet of free will, and we really don't control anybody else, but that's a hard one for people to wrap their heads around. So I was showing you this before, that
Yes, yes.
in that survival tip, I have a quote for every chapter.
Yes.
And my favorite quote in the book is from Robert Heinlein, who's
a sci-fi writer.
Fabulous sci-fi writer. And he says, "Never try to teach a pig to sing. It's a waste of your time, and it annoys the pig." So the point here that I'm trying to make is that if you keep trying to help or change an addict who isn't ready for that change, there will be no change. You will get very frustrated. And
Increasingly so.
Increasingly so. And, to the point where your health could suffer, all kinds of things could suffer. When the addict is ready, then you can help. But it's not about you changing that person. And the Serenity Prayer, I find, is a really great tool for that. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is other people. The courage, because it takes courage to change the things I can, which is me.
Yeah.
And my favorite line is the wisdom to know the difference, because if we don't have the wisdom to know the difference between what we can change and what we can't change, we keep trying to change what we can't change.
Yes.
So I think people really need to learn that one. That's my first favorite.
Yeah, I just thinking about, many, many years ago, we had a guy in a program I was running who when he came to us because 3 guys were trying to push him off the Broad Street Bridge before a drug deal that went south, And
well, that's a bottom.
Yeah, so he ran into our house, and he was in his late 30s, late 30s, and he was a street drug addict, a heroin addict, Well, he was there one day, and his poor old ancient mother came to visit him and bring him things. And we very sweetly, as kindly as we could, sat her down and said, we'll say her name was Smith, Mrs. Smith, it's so nice of you to visit Jack, but he's a grown man now, and you're not going to visit him for at least the next 60 days.
Yes.
He'll be fine.
Yes.
It's time for Jack to grow up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other part of that is that it isn't helpful for her to come and visit Jack. And that's the second tip that is my favorite one,
yes.
about not enabling people, knowing the difference.
Yeah, so what is the difference between helping and enabling? A lot of people don't know what that word means.
Yeah. The way I define it, I like to use really simple definitions for things. So
Yes.
an enabling behavior is one that actually keeps the addiction going. A helping behavior is something that helps it to stop. And there are big differences between those behaviors. So Mrs. Smith is coming to see Jack because she needs to come and see Jack. This is about her. It's much more about her than it is about Jack. I'm not saying she doesn't love Jack, but it's more about her. So an enabling behavior, you know, when I started working with the loved ones at Watari, I started hearing about how people would give their addicted loved ones money.
Of course.
You know.
Always. Money, yeah.
Like, that's not a good plan with somebody who's addicted to something,
yes.
you know.
What do you do with this? A friend of mine was at a party the other day, and she met someone who lives in the same building. He's a very successful guy, and he was bragging about his wife. He's so happy his wife has the most purposeful work. She's giving out free heroin to addicts on the downtown east side, and she's doing a wonderful thing. And my friend hit the roof and said, how is that helping anybody? Now, there are many, of course, this man says, well, these people, you know, they need to...
Who are not like us at all.
Yeah, who are not like us at all. Exactly, exactly. So you talk about enabling, we're going to give you free drugs. That's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of debates about what we're
Yes.
doing on the downtown east side. There's the needle exchange and Insight, and I can sort of understand giving clean needles to people so that they don't get diseases, but to actually hand out the drug, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
I was reading a novel, I'm still reading this novel, I'm almost finished, beautiful book, and the writer used the word palliate in the sense of palliative care, you know, and so I had to look it up as a verb. And palliate means to sort of cover up a difficult situation, but not get to the cause and really cure it and not help it. Well, that's understandable when people are dying of cancer.
Yes,
we
but
make
not
them
addiction.
comfortable.
Not with addiction, because addiction is a symptom of what lies underneath it. Why do we need to sabotage our lives so badly? Why do we need to shoot ourselves in the foot so much? I'm a recovering addict myself. I have 25 years clean and sober now.
Yes, I know.
And I still consider myself to be an addict, to be a recovering addict, because I think I need to be just as careful as the next guy who's just coming into the program.
About what?
Because if I don't take care of myself, and that's the third tip I love the most.
Yes, yes, that's your number three.
If there isn't self-care going on a holistic basis, because I'm an addict, I have just as much of a tendency to want to hide from life. I choose not to. I choose not to hide from life every day now.
Right.
I make that choice.
Give me an example in the last 72 hours of where you might have been mildly at risk, or where you notice old tendencies or habits of your own, or thinking or attitudes.
Okay, well, I have one from 72 hours and I have one that isn't. So the one for 72 hours is that I still have a real problem with chocolate.
Yes.
I think probably people can relate to this.
What's the problem?
The problem is I just, you know, one is good and more is better. Especially dark Belgian chocolate, just love it. I could eat it all day long instead of anything else. So whenever I'm upset about anything, stressed about anything, even if I don't really know what the stress is about, I want to go to chocolate. That's not good for me on a number of levels.
Do you actually eat lots of it?
I don't anymore. A little bit is okay, but sometimes that's hard for me.
I have this much dark chocolate every night after dinner.
Because it's good for you.
Because it's good for me.
I know.
And I like it.
But
I can't eat a whole chocolate bar.
But
I'd get sick.
I'm really happy for you.
Yeah.
I could.
Really?
Right? Oh, yeah.
Ouch.
A couple of them.
Yeah.
At least.
Oh, no.
No. So another example I give you is that, you know, when I see a really bright sunny day, I would love to be able to just go to the beach and smoke a joint.
Ouch.
That would be such a nice thing to do. At least I think it would. I'm not sure if I'd actually like the experience of being high anymore after 25 years of not being high. But sometimes my addicted brain tells me that. And I make a choice because I really like my life the way I've created it now.
Yeah.
And so I choose not to do that. And I choose to do something else with that feeling.
See, this is one of the many ways that I know I'm not addictive, is that even though I smoked all kinds of pot when I was very young, I haven't smoked in 45 years, and it never occurs to me.
It never occurs to you.
Never occurs to me.
Exactly.
I see a beautiful day, I just want to go for a walk.
Right, and I'm so happy for you. But the most natural thing for an addict to want to do is use the addiction, whatever the addiction is, even if it's, you know, go shopping. It doesn't matter.
Find an excuse.
Find a reason or an excuse to go shopping or to smoke a joint or whatever. The most natural thing for an addict to want to do is use, but that doesn't mean we have to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And the most natural thing for a loved one to want to do is enable their addicted loved one, is to help so much, is to get in there and do everything for them.
When you notice that you have the tiniest little iota of a hint of an inkling of reverting to some addictive behavior, do you just laugh at yourself? What do you do?
I do. I have a lot of amusement with myself now, but I'll tell you that if I really started to feel like that was going to be even a possibility, which it hasn't been in a very long time.
Thank God. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I would do something about that. I would get myself to a meeting. I would call someone. I would do something about that because I know better. I know better. This can affect me with a lot of years clean, as much as it can affect somebody who's just coming in. That's the nature of addiction.
Yeah, the beautiful accident of addiction is that it brings people who work their way through the tunnel, it brings people to a phenomenal understanding of who they are and what life is about.
For sure.
Yeah.
I tell clients sometimes, because they can't believe that I've, been in that place, that, they wouldn't have wanted to know me back then.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person.
You're a wonderful person, Candace.
Aw,
great. Thanks so much.
Great
to have you here. I know you do wonderful work in the community.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, that's it, folks. Next week, we're going to do a repeat show. My old buddy Gavin Walker, who is an alto sax player, but also probably one of the great jazz historians and does his show on CITR radio for the last zillion years, talks about the politics of jazz, mostly about race. And this was a show that we recorded during the last American election. So I think you'll enjoy that if you miss us. Thanks so much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again here on Shaw Community Television, Cable 4. Good night.